Alone time, are you coming tonight? I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. Mariana stared at me with a look of eagerness, a look that hurt me to make disappear. She'd asked this question the past month about twice a week, each time a little emptier than the last. I didn't blame her. I hung my head, a head so heavy on my shoulders, and weakly shrugged. With that, she pursed her lips, tucked a loose strand of dark hair behind her ear, and gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Just let me know if you're ready. Molly, the idea of being ready seemed unattainable. Breaking up with Dominic was one of the most painful things I'd ever endured. Never in my life could I imagine the pain that comes with saying goodbye to a long-term partner, and the relationship we tirelessly worked to build together. This entire month was one of complete and utter despair. I was a negative mass of energy that did what it was supposed to do, but saw no point in it. Mariana saw this. She saw my grief. She stayed with me the night we ended things. And the following few nights. I couldn't bear to be alone, even more so in current times, and she knew it. We sat in my dim living room, illuminated only by the street lamp outside, and uttered no words. No television, no music. What I needed was another soul in the room, cradling in it what was left of mine. Those nights were some of the darkest nights I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. The dust stirred in the light peeking through the blinds, giving a thin coat to the surfaces of a room I no longer cared for. This room was now haunted. He had claimed this space by filling it with futile memories. Memories of the nights where we'd laugh over a game of cards and a few too many glasses of Chardonnay, memories of running my fingers through his thick, sandy hair while watching Survivor. These broke my heart more than the times of struggle. Reminiscing about these peaceful moments only reminded me of the current state my life was in, but one memory pulled the trigger, one evening, one gut-wrenching evening. Consumed me wholly every time it invaded my thoughts. The evening where we sat on my velvet blue sofa, chatting about how we would spend the night. He contributed little to the talk of plans. The soft light of the sun's setting glow made the room airy, almost dreamlike, looking back. White wainscoting wrapped around the perimeter of the room, just below the pale yellow walls, a color Dominic insisted on, and still remains in a now olive green room. Alarm bells went off in my head. Something was wrong. This I was sure of. So I pressed the matter. Before a word could be spoken, his face gave it away. His expression is forever ingrained in my mind. I don't know how to say this. I don't think this relationship is what I want anymore. My heart disintegrated. If it wasn't pounding in my chest, ringing in my ears, I would have thought the fucking thing gave out, but that's all in the past. Just as the version of me before that evening is, people would call me the life of the party. Once upon a time, I was always equipped with an enticing story, a clever joke, or an ear willing to listen. These were things I never saw in myself, despite those around me telling me otherwise. I only saw them once they vanished. My energy was drawn from the people around me. I'd make every effort to go out whenever I was able to, hanging out with friends at the local watering hole, or maybe grabbing a cup of coffee. Of course, Dominic was by my side in a majority of those excursions. Our inseparability was apparent to everyone who encountered us. In some way, I felt that my inability to be alone created an unhealthy dynamic. My identity had been placed within his, and his within mine. I no longer knew what I needed. Did I need to try and go out with Mariana, surrounding myself with people? Or did I stay like I had each night of that month, succumbing to my unmade bed the second I returned from work? Any conversation I've had since that evening has left me feeling like a broken record. Without a second thought, his name escapes my mouth. It's as though I have to talk about it until it makes sense, but it doesn't. Shutting out the world was easier than boring people with memories of my partner. Ex-partner. Never in my life had I spent such a prolonged period of time in a state of isolation such as this. The idea of enjoying alone time had always baffled me each time I entertained it. But what slowly crept up on me was that, every so often, alone time was pretty okay. When you recharge through other people, sacrifices are always made. You won't get to go exactly where you want, as you have to take into account the desires and opinions of your friends. Or with Dominic, I realized that I was so concerned with his wants, I'd often suppressed my own. Rarely was there a sacrifice on his end, partially due to my submissive nature, but partially due to his selfishness. The F.
For Laura, my wife dared me to perform the following task project. I do not usually take on these challenges so easily, but I would like to write for a living someday, and I saw it as a way to break in with the Reedsy crowd. The day was almost over, and the glorious weekend was beginning. It is finally spring, and my wife and I were discussing what we wanted to do for dinner, since we could finally go outside, without masks, and enjoy the weather. Since this beautiful day was ending with a perfect evening, my wife and I decided we would go to a classy, romantic restaurant near the beach on the New Jersey shore. It is 7 p.m. on a Friday. So, as the sun came down slowly, a big burning orange ball of light that ruled the sky until it set behind us. I always wished that it would set in front of us so we could see if it were glistening on the magnificent rolling blue-green water of the beachfront we were heading to. Living on the scenic Jersey shore, before we went out for a delicious feast and a barefoot walk on the white sandy beach. I said, "Let me check my email, just one more time," to my stunning, patient wife. I checked the email, against my better judgment, and lo and behold, it was Laura from Reedsy asking if I wanted to write a short story and join in a contest for writing short stories. It was clearly wrong to keep my wonderful wife waiting, but she patiently waited since Laura threw down this gauntlet, and I saw and met up to the challenge. So, I trekked into my office, put on my glasses, sat down at my trusty computer, lit up my Word program and started cranking this story out. I wanted to write a story about gender acceptance, since, when I grew up, there were only 2 genders. Now there are 4 accepted genders: masculine, feminine, neuter, and common. I, some time ago, heard that Facebook has a list of more than 50 genders that a person can choose from when they initially sign up, or when they change their mind about which gender they are choosing. I chose to use a Zoom call to my son since we are in COVID-19 times. There are many ways in which a person identifies and/or expresses their gender, so I turned to my gay son, whom I love very much, for his thoughts and debate skills. We have different morals, different points of view, a different style for living our lives, but he is the perfect person to share conflicting views with. Father and son relationships are one of the most underrated situations ever in history. It is not the same as the security a father-daughter relation has, or the intimacy a mother-son relationship does. A large share of this relationship is expressed passively. Here action speaks louder than words. It's a bond made of scolding, learning, teaching, and guiding. At times it is speaking your heart out. When a boy is at a young age, his dad is his beginning teacher. He teaches him all he knows and works feverishly to make him a man, worthy to be on his own in this environment. A father is there for his son to support and teach him to fight for his territory, to be confident and strong. I always kept my distance and let him live in the dream that whenever he won, it was on his own. He never knew or realized that his daddy stood behind him like a shadow to support him in ways he could not imagine. A gender identity that is generally considered by society to be a match is the biological sex assigned at birth. Although gender has not felt or looked the same in every place, all the time, in the last few centuries gender has developed vastly divided. There are 2 opposing viewpoints. If a male, you must dress, look, and act by a certain set of rules and regulations. If a female, you have to dress, look, and act according to a completely other set of rules. In a society which is cis-normative, patriarchal, and binary, one's gender is a form of social order and categorization. It commands how we responses to and treat other. The gender we know covers a big range of interfaces. One example is holding a door open for a woman or pulling back a chair. One does not do it for a man. It might look like labeling a woman's emotions irrational when she is mad or upset. Not for a man. Add in the sexism that women face in our patriarchal gender world. That rigidity of the binary gender penalizes those who do not fit into gender expectations. This comes out in transphobia. Trans women face sexism and misogyny as both women and trans people, they are at a perilous intersection of identity. My son has much different views and he is not afraid to tell them to me in a forceful manner. One world, one race, one gender, he always says. We fight about transgender sports and what it means for girls. Sometimes our fights escalate into me wanting to hang up on him, but I never do. After all, he always tells me I'm the one who is going to choose your nursing home, Dad. Sometimes he and are like oil and water, sometimes we are like peanut butter and jelly. Our love makes us bond, but my so